I wanted to just start the interview by acknowledging the work of Anna Plowden and Anna Plowden Trust in supporting people learning and developing in conservation. Anna was a passionate conservator herself, a huge impact and a very important Royal Warrant Holder and Deputy Chair of the Royal Warrant Holder Association. And there's a couple of links there that you can look up the website and see what the Trust does, or watch a really wonderful video made in 2018 about Anna Plowden Trust and the work that they've done. But what I wanted to say was, since winning the award only about a week ago, it's been wonderful just to how many people have come forward to tell me about their memories of Anna. Obviously, she was a very influential figure in conservation, but the memories that really, the messages that jump out are people just saying how kind she was, how much she supported their professional development, and how she was prepared to give and share constantly throughout her career. So having said that, I will move on to the questions that I was asked by Icon. I am a little bit odd in this, that I was very young when I first realized I wanted to be conservator. I was in primary school and I watched a TV program where someone unwrapped the mummy, and I just thought, that's what I want to do. It took me quite a while before I found out that it was called conservation, but eventually a careers guidance counsellor I met in secondary school told me that's what it is that I wanted to do. So then that's when I knew for sure that not only did I want to be a conservator, but what one was. Well, I took a BSc in conservation straight from school. And I was lucky because I was educated in Scotland. People from Scotland are always convinced that they're lucky that they're from Scotland. But because of that, I took something called CSYS, which was a qualification that people might not be familiar with, but it was quite sort of personally tailored. So I was able to take, from my history module, I was able to study the Romans and natives in North Britain, so focus on archaeology. For my chemistry module, I was able to do my self project on colour imagery, which I did because I thought it was a useful analytical technique. But I only did that after it took me a while, because I convinced myself I was going to do some amino acid randomization on bone samples, or fossilized bone samples, in my bathroom. But it took me a while to realize that that was probably a little bit too ambitious. And I also studied English and did read Sylvia Plath for fun. When I came to college, I was super keen, but it was a busy time of the miners' strike and Margaret Thatcher taking away the student fees. And I would think it's fair to say that I didn't put as much work into the last elements of my degree as I should have. And after that, I went out into the world of work and worked as a contract conservator for quite a lot of years, and then a museum advisor. And then I was I think the thing that most important happened to me next in educational terms was probably the IIC conference in Ottawa on preventive conservation, which I attended. And it had so many important lessons. It was, incredibly important. So many papers that were presented that were so seminal, but also the whole experience of being there and feeling, oh no, this is exactly where I belong. And then coming back to Wales and passing on the advice and feeling way more confident to move away from standardization. I understood at last where Gary Thompson sat in my understanding. Still very, very important, but not sort of as a rule book, but as a guide. And after some time as a museum advisor, I went back to college and did a master's in collections care. And what was really driving me then was my interest in influence techniques, which had come again from being a museum advisor. And in teaching, it's always a bit about surviving, getting through the term. But beyond that, I think it's those moments in teaching, it's those moments where you just connect with a student around an idea or a project, or you just springboard them into activity or a placement, and you think that is the perfect fit for that person. That's going to take them somewhere they need to be. So this summer, for example, putting students into placements where I just felt that was all they needed. That was the one piece of the jigsaw that they could now go and make their career themselves. And yes, teaching is quite exhausting, but it's also, I guess, one of the most rewarding careers that you could possibly have. So if you're going to say, what do I want to achieve? I think it's the same as my achievements. It's about the achievements of the alumni. It's about all of those people you've helped contribute to go out there being great conservators, and I hope enjoy conservation. Well, it matters a huge amount to me. I was involved way back in the beginning on the committees to set up and design accreditation. And I think at that time it was a response to what we were saying all the time in the sector, which is that people don't recognize our skills, people don't recognize our expertise, we're not sufficiently well paid. And I think it's really important for curators, archivists, librarians, members of the public, artists to be able to find really high quality conservation professional advice. And thoughtful advice as well. But I didn't want it to be an exclusive process. So we've ensured that the Icon pathways can allow people, perhaps with an engineering background, who I would have worked with more in sort of the coal mining collections, to come into conservation expertise. So I don't think we can expect everyone else to know what a good conservator is. We're the experts. I think accreditation is down to us to be able to create a mechanism that people who have things that are really important to them, for whatever reason, can find a conservator who will support them to make the very best use of that thing, whether it's art or a document or an object. Well, in terms of objects, I guess my favorite object was a wooden medieval root figure, a figure of Mary that I worked on when I worked at the National Museum of Wales and Cymru. Anyone who's ever spent any time with me or watched any of my slideshows will know that I'm ridiculously proud of my family and everything that they've achieved. Becoming a professor was super exciting, and I was thrilled about that, as was being elected Secretary General of IIC, which still seems a little bit like I have to pinch myself. I'm really proud of some of the papers I've written. The paper I wrote on uncertainty grew from reading leaflets when I was being treated for cancer that talked about uncertainty, and I was thinking about that from a conservation perspective. And a paper I've written recently, which is called Beyond Lifetimes. I think it was the paper that really brought together my concerns about social issues with my conservation professional approach. Some of the work I've done internationally makes me incredibly proud, training conservators around the world, around Wales and around the world, to help them transform their museums or their collections, sometimes often with the people I've been training with minimal resources. When I get to see those transformations, it's wonderful. And I've been really lucky. Several of my students have won Icon awards for their brilliant work. So I guess you take the most professional pride in the achievements and the happiness of those that you've helped to teach. Well, first of all, conservation is such a powerful route for women into STEM. And I'd like to encourage all of conservators to fulfill their ambitions, to engage with the science, to feel confident of their place in the profession. But I would also like to see the conservators be able to move within organizations into leadership roles, whether that's private sector or public sector, but have the confidence to be there making decisions about the future of the cultural heritage. And I think that, conservators should be seen on an equal footing with other professionals, archivists, curators, art historians. But I think we still have some work to do there. And I think part of that has to be making sure that we are talking to wider sectoral interests and goals when we're talking about what it is that we contribute. Speak your value. That is my cracker piece of announcement. Conservators often talk and struggle with their careers and their pathways and their salaries, and I know it's a struggle. And this sounds like a really inane thing to say, as if this would solve things, but you've got to practice expressing what you're worth, asking for what you think you're worth, saying it out loud. And of course, it won't solve all problems, but I think there are some problems that will never be solved if we don't say that thing. So I think however much perhaps a job process has strained you, or however much you feel that you can't get anywhere, that's my advice. Make sure that if you're feeling drained, if you're feeling undervalued, have you spoken your worth this week? Have you put it out there into the universe, how valuable you are? So those are all the things that I wanted, that were all the answers to my question. I'm sure that you want to see this. It's the actual Anna Plowden Medal. It is absolutely amazing, beautiful. And I'm going to do the conservator non-thing. I'm going to touch it with my bare naked fingers. So there's a portrait of Anna on the front, and then some of the things that she worked on the side. And my details on the side. I am so unbelievably proud to have won this, and of my colleague Stephen Clare, who's also won one from Hollowell Glass. So thank you very much to the Anna Plowden Trust, and thank you very much to Icon for giving me a chance to talk about it.